Hi, I'm Alex Elle, and I write books for a living. The Hey Girl podcast was created with sisterhood and storytelling in mind. Hey girl.
Hey girl.
Hey girl.
Hey girl.
I'll be sitting down with some phenomenal women to discuss love.
I believe we grew distant out of love of some type, I don't want to hurt you.
Loss.
Really don't know what's going to trigger that feeling of grief in any moment.
And a topic very important to my work, self-care.
I'm holding on to this self-care with every ounce of me.
Join us as we journey through sharing together. A lot of these conversations are pretty private, and these women are courageous and vulnerable and transparent, and that alone shows us that we're not alone in our struggle. This week's guest is CP Patrick. CP is an author. I met CP at a self-care workshop. CP's role in my life, I would definitely say mentor. She's wonderful, and she has really kind of guided me and my husband through certain things, and just me as a creative, it's just awesome to talk with her and bounce things off of her. We are discussing a wide variety of things in today's show. We talk about the writing process, we talk about some self-care tips, and we also talk about trusting the journey. This is CP's story. Hey girl.
Hey girl.
How are you? Thanks for being in the studio with us.
I am great. Thanks for having me.
No worries. So for everybody who is tuning in, we are here with author Christine Patrick. Should we call you CP? Should we call you
Patrick?
There we go.
Trying to distinguish myself from my old legal career.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, CP Patrick is in the studio with us. A dear friend of mine, somewhat of a mentor. She is just absolutely amazing. So tell us a little bit about you.
Let's see. I am, an attorney by trade.
Mm-hmm.
I majored in African and African American studies for my bachelor's and master's, and sort of was on the fence to, should I get a PhD? Should I not? And then everyone goes to law school and they don't know, what they want to do. So I ended up in law school and just ended up having this wonderful career in energy and renewable energy and being an advocate for the environment. And in 2015, I sort of got this writing bug.
Yeah.
And I, it had been there all along. We have so many things that we love that we suppress from our childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just started writing again, and it just changed my life. Now I'm an author and working on my second novel, my third book. So yeah, and I'm a minimalist.
Yay. That's really exciting. So lawyer turned writer.
Yes.
So I kind of want to touch on how law school shaped you, and if you were able to keep some of your creativity in law school, or was 2015 the year that you picked back up and was like, I'm going to be a writer?
It's interesting. I think law school, the purpose of it is to kill creativity.
Really?
Only in the sense that it's supposed to be a fair and, unbiased justice system, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you start getting creative, then you you
then
start
you
moving away from the
vibe,
law.
right?
Yeah. So I think it definitely taught me really good legal research and writing skills, which are, transferable just in life. It taught me discipline like you would not believe, okay? And that has actually really benefited my writing because, as a writer, there are sometimes you have to sit down for 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 hours. And my body is like, yeah, we've done this before. This is nothing, you know? So it definitely taught me discipline, reaching my goals. And so in that sense, it was wonderful. I never really had sort of this burning desire to practice. I think, there are certain people that go into law school. Some of my classmates knew they wanted to do criminal law. And then some of us were just there we'll see what happens.
Right.
So I think I got lucky. I graduated in 2006. And no one was really talking about energy and renewable energy at that time.
Yeah.
Came out of law school and I was just like, I need a job.
Yeah.
You know, and
Someone take me.
Yeah, someone hire me. So I started to just apply at anything that would move. And, you know, one of those jobs was a renewable energy job with a very small boutique law firm.
Okay.
And that gave me an opportunity to really, really grow and hone those skills. And then all of a sudden, everything was like renewable energy in the environment. And there are very few people of color in that field.
Yeah.
And being here in D.C., I was just able to write my ticket. And then Obama went into office, and I'm like, I want to work under his administration.
Yeah.
So I end up at the Department of Energy writing policy. So it's just like, it was just this magical ride, but never really feeling creatively fulfilled, you know?
Have you always had that burning desire to be creative, or did it just kind of click after a while?
You know, it was always there, and then with law, it did get suppressed. And it was when one of my friends, actually in 2013, we decided to do NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month.
Okay.
Which is where you write 50,000 words in 1 month.
Yeah, you told me about that.
Which is as crazy as it sounds.
Is that how Awiti was born?
That's Awiti. Awiti was born from NaNoWriMo.
Wow.
So I think that sort of opened up the creative process and getting those juices flowing. And then it started where I would go to work all day and work on energy policy, and then run home at night and take care of my family, and then, go ahead and start working on the book.
Yeah.
And I ended up just like, no, I want to work on this book all the time.
Full time.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this book. For people who are unfamiliar with Awiti, novel number 1, please tell us a little bit about it.
Awiti is my baby, my baby. So in grad school, I heard this theory that the spirits of slaves are not at rest and that they're embodied in the winds of hurricanes. And it just always stuck with me. I grew up in South Florida. I remember being in Hurricane Andrew. And the theory came about because a lot of hurricane winds start off the coast of West Africa, gain momentum as they cross the Atlantic, almost following the exact same route as slave ships.
Wow.
And they hit mostly the southern slaveholding states. And so that's how that theory sort of came about. When my good girlfriend, when we were like, let's do NaNoWriMo, I'm like, I'm going to write about that, And so I looked at the top 10 hurricanes, and I wanted to see if there were any corresponding moments in Black history that would justify the rage of a hurricane. And my only caveat was it couldn't be a story that we had heard before.
Right.
Because we hear the same stories. I'm like, you're not talking about the Underground Railroad,
Right.
Let's find something unique, you know?
Right.
And I just came across the most fascinating stories and, parts of our history. And, I tell people all the time, the book kind of wrote itself. And you hear writers
expound on that for a little bit.
You hear writers say that sometimes, and there's so many cliches that I heard before being a writer. I'm like, the book didn't write itself. That is so stupid,
right?
But I remember like coming across a piece of research and then literally being able to just write out an entire chapter. And a lot of writers call that channeling. And you say like, someone wants their story told. So yes, you're writing it. And yes, I'm creative, but I'm not that creative. I can recognize when there's a higher power helping me.
Yeah, for sure.
So there were a lot of moments like that with the book, and it was just, and it just ended up surpassing every dream that I had. It's been used at colleges and universities, high schools. I'm speaking at a school next Wednesday in Atlanta. Like it's just been this magical ride. And
so when did you decide this needs all of my attention? And you were married at the time. Right now you're currently going through a transition to divorce. So how were you able to bring that up to your then partner? Like, I don't want to do law. I want to do writing. And were you comfortable with that decision once you got there?
Yes, I was. Not initially. Going from a 6-figure salary to
a
writer salary,
which can range, but independent artistry is not always easy.
Straight out the gate, it was a rude awakening. But it was interesting because I would spend so much time in my office writing. That when I came to him and said that, he said, I knew this was coming. Like, I can see how much you love writing. And he was just on board and was like, let's figure it out.
Was he on board from the beginning? Or was there some push and pull? Wow.
From the beginning.
That's a blessing.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So once you got that blessing from your partner, you were just like, how did you leave your job?
So I knew that would be tough. I was a senior policy advisor at the Department of Energy at the time.
Yeah.
Yes. So, and as a woman of color, you also feel sort of pressure. Like I felt such pressure on me for I made it to that level, and like I'm the only one in my office at this level. And, so there was a lot of pressure in terms of letting that go. Mm-hmm. And I gave them 3 months notice.
Okay. That's really generous.
And I think they were still in denial until like the month before.
Yeah.
Because, no one walks away from their good government job, right? But my office was wonderfully supportive. They threw me a wonderful party. Mm-hmm. They love a wee tea. They purchase copies of a wee tea. They follow me, and I still, keep up with some of my old employees. So, it just ended up, working out really well. I know it's crazy, right?
It is so crazy. Like if you guys were in the studio to see my face, I'm just like, that is just insane because you don't hear these types of stories often. Yeah. It's normally like, oh, I've been itching to do this writing thing or this creative thing all my life, and then I had to get a job. But your path was completely different. Yeah. Not only did you have a family, you had a big responsibility in your job, and all of a sudden you were like, I'm going to do this 50,000 word challenge that turns into a book that turns into me touring the country, teaching, and just your life's work is just.
Yeah. I think it's a testament to following your heart and your goals, though. And it actually motivated other people who had dreams that they suppress, and when my kids finish school or when this happens or when this happens, they're like, Christine just jumped out there. Yeah, and I would get all these messages and people were just like, wow, I'm so inspired. I'm so proud of you. Or how are you feeling, and just, so I told people, this is something that you're interested in doing. Definitely plan. Yeah. It wasn't like I just woke up one morning and was like, I'm going to quit today. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
right. Same.
Your responsibilities and obligations.
Be smart.
So be smart, and give yourself whatever time you need to plan. But like, I think once I put that in motion and I knew what I was going to do, that it just made me like, I couldn't wait. It was so exciting. And I'm so happy. Like the first month that I didn't get a paycheck, I just remember thinking like, oh my God. But I realized I was working to pay for parking, for food, for clothes, and so I really didn't feel as big of a hit as I thought that I was going to feel. Yeah. And so that was probably the biggest surprise for me. Like, oh, we're not eating beans. We can do it. We can really do it.
We can do it. I think that that's amazing, and I hope that whoever's listening to this can pull from that, because I get those questions a lot. Like, how do you do it? How do you go for it? And just like you said, it's a true testament of following your heart and setting your goals, and it's just magical.
Yeah. So all the universe conspires, right, to help you. I will say that as well.
The
so
alchemist.
Once I jumped, it was just like the universe did conspire to help me. From people purchasing the book, leaving reviews, just all these different things, and it is magical, but you have to take that first step, definitely.
So you mentioned reviews, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because I've been telling people on the internet, like, if you like Neon Soul, which is my third book, leave a review. Please, specifically people of color, because a lot of times they'll send me a DM or an email, and I got this moving email about 2 days ago, and it was long. Oh, yeah. And this random person picked up the book in Barnes & Noble, was flipping through it, and sent me this email that literally shook my entire life and how much they loved the book. And I wrote them back, of course, and then I asked them, would you please leave a review?
Can you cut and paste this?
Yes, please, literally, because our voices need to be heard.
Definitely.
And how do you feel about that, specifically with Awidi having 5 stars on Amazon? It's wonderful. How do you feel about the power of reviews, specifically in our community?
It's so important. And I think with a lot of readers, they just don't understand the importance of reviews. Yeah. That's the issue, right?
Yeah.
Aside from it being the very last thing on everyone's to-do list,
literally.
Literally, I don't think that we understand the importance of reviews. And I was the same way. I've read tons of really amazing books, and you tell your friends and you're like, oh my God, I read this great book, but you never think to leave a review. And you can even go look at some classics. Look at The Color Purple, and it may only have like 600-700 reviews.
Everybody and their mama
read The Color Purple,
right.
So we don't understand, number one, how that impacts the author. For independent authors especially, there are certain promotional programs, there are certain pairings with other books on Amazon that you have to have a certain number of reviews before that can even happen. An independent book that has 50 5-stars being paired with another book that has 200 5-stars, it's marketing and publicity that they just you can't pay for.
Right.
You know what I mean?
No, absolutely.
And so the readers of that book will see that book, and it sort of plays into itself. So there's that sense. The other thing is, from an independent and traditionally published standpoint, we're always talking about, especially people of color, how our voices are not heard. Well, our voices are not heard because it looks like we're not reading. Because we're not leaving reviews. We're not saying, I love this book, and I would love to read more stories like this. And that voice is so important. I think initially people think, an author asks, can you leave me a review? Like, it's not to make me feel good.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it does. Thank you. I'm so glad you loved it, you know?
Yeah,
but at
totally.
the same time, like that, it's not helping my career at all. You know, so I'm the same way. And I think right out the gate with the WeT, I mean, my friends will tell you, I hounded about those reviews.
Please write a review.
I put messages on Facebook anytime I would get like a DM, like you said. And I actually got a beautiful DM last night, someone who finished a WeT, and I thanked her, and and I said, can you please leave me a review on Amazon? And she went to do it, right away. And it's best to do it right after you finish the book, because it's fresh on your mind and, that sort of thing. And they're just so important. So on Amazon and Goodreads especially, Barnes & Noble, leave reviews there as well. If you can hit all three, and it's totally fine to cut and paste the same review. And it's even fine to leave one sentence if that's all you.
I love it.
This book was awesome. 5 stars. Even that is helpful to an author. And like being on BookBub, which is a huge ebook promotional service. You have to have a certain number of favorable reviews to even be considered for a slot. And that's traditional and indie authors. So, there's so many other benefits to the author by having these reviews out there.
So what have you learned as an independent author with a best-selling book that people are literally going to pass down and have on their bookshelves forever and ever?
It's so amazing to me when I hear people say that. It's still it's still surreal sometimes. I think I learned really to be true to my voice. One of the reasons that I think a WeT is doing very well is that it's just my voice. The novel that I'm working on now, I'm literally like on probably the 100th revision, and I'm working with an agent now and going to work with a traditional publisher. And so, there's a different sort of pressure. And so I felt myself like trying to write under that pressure. And it wasn't until I was like, just write from your voice and from your heart, the same way you did with the WeT, that now the story is just like flowing and we all love it. And, so I think like really being true to your voice, not trying to write for a book contract, not trying to write for a particular audience, like it should be as pure and genuine as possible. And even if you want to be traditionally published, the work that you write, you should be so proud of it that if it isn't traditionally published, you're like, okay, well, I'll indie publish it because I believe in this story. And that's how I felt about a WeT.
Wow. That's wonderful you say that, too, about authentically and genuinely writing. I get a lot of emails and messages from young writers who say that they want to be writers, but they really only want Instagram likes and retweets and things like that, which it's really difficult because it's like, are you writing for the internet's approval or are you writing for your voice?
And that won't last long. I mean, as you know, like it is literally a career.
It is.
I mean, there are hours of your day that can be spent editing 3 poems, right?
Yeah.
Or working on 1 chapter, you know, and it has to be something that you love. If it's not something, writing especially,
right.
If it's not something that you love, eventually you will walk away.
Yeah.
Because it's not this instant gratification. Initially, you know, I think Instagram gives some sort of false appearance of that.
Absolutely.
You know, and I've seen people, you can tell where things are being recycled, and that's so painful to the actual artist. You know, I'm sure as a poet you've seen your stuff recycled.
Oh, we just had this conversation
many times.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't think people understand, like, can you just add my little handle at the end? Like, it would just mean a lot to me. These are my words that I slaved over, that I like really, really worked hard on.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think that, you know, it has to be something that you really want, and it has to be for more than just a like, you know, it has to be for a purpose, a reason, reaching an audience, wanting to help someone. For me, it's wanting to tell the history of the African diaspora. Like, that is my incentive and my goal. I want to tell these stories that have never been told. You know, it's not, I want 5 stars on Amazon. You know, like, what is your purpose and reason behind your writing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, y'all. Are you obsessed with beautiful stationery like I am? Well, Love Pop turns stationery into these magical gifts that are mailable and keepsakes. Love Pops are more than cards. Each one is laser cut, hand assembled, and designed to surprise and delight. The purpose of every Love Pop card is to create a moment of connection between you and the people you care about. If you're interested in giving Love Pop this holiday season, you can unlock special pricing for 5 or more cards and get free shipping on any order by going to lovepop.com/heygirl. I just got my hands on some Love Pop cards. I love the Christmas ones. They are beautiful, ornate, decorative, and really extremely mind-blowing. I'm excited to give them to my Nana for this holiday season so I can be her favorite, and she will keep this up all year round. I already know, Christmas or not. So again, if you're interested in giving the gift of Love Pop, you can unlock special pricing for 5 or more cards and get free shipping on any order by going to lovepop.com/heygirl. So you wrote a book of poetry too.
I did.
Letters to
Dear Ancestors.
Dear Ancestors. I was close. I always
some
wanted
letters
to say, like,
in there.
Letters to my ancestors.
Yeah.
No, Dear Ancestors.
Yes.
How was writing a book of poetry different from writing a novel? And Awiti is not a skimp novel. It's a long novel. So how was that transition for you?
You know, I get a lot from readers that parts of Awiti read like poetry.
Yeah.
So I feel like poetry has always been sort of my first love.
Yeah.
And with Dear Ancestors, I just felt like we were, just as a people, we were going through so much. And I think that sometimes, I mean, it's debilitating, right? It's depressing. It's so hard. And I always think, like, what did my ancestors go through? What are they thinking? Like, they're like, you guys are advancing. This is great. You know, look at where you are. We never imagined, you know. And so I just wanted to sort of pay homage to them and sort of move from where we were in Africa to where we are now. So the book sort of takes that flow. It starts, you know, in Africa and ends where we are now, and sort of have a place to express a lot of the happiness, a lot of the sadness and joy and pain and suffering. I posted one of the poems the other day in light of the recent murder, and it's just painful to me that these things are continuing to be relevant today. Yeah, and the poem says, "What can I wear? What can I say to make sure I don't die today?" And that's living while black. You know, and I just don't think people, like, you just don't have a place to put that, but like, you know what I mean? Like, that's what you're carrying on you, whether you say it or not, you know, or you're worrying about your, you know, I think of my friends that have beautiful sons and beautiful daughters, and you're just like, carrying the weight of that is so heavy. So like, wanting to sort of share that and express that and provide an outlet for people who may not know how to channel that.
It's tricky, but it's so true. And I want to kind of circle back to what we talked about earlier with you getting a divorce. You wrote a beautiful blog post about it.
Thank you.
So eloquently written.
Eloquent pain.
Eloquent
yes.
pain. And I want to touch on one thing in particular.
Okay.
How did that experience, and you're still going through it, impact your ability to write? You're working on your second novel.
Yes.
How were you able to navigate? How are you navigating through that?
Yes. So there were months with no writing.
How did that feel?
It felt terrible. And when you are, a full-time creative, it feels particularly terrible because you feel like you should be doing something every day to sort of, advance towards your goals. But there were times I just couldn't. I was emotionally drained, or physically tired. It was tough. But the story that I'm working on is a World War II love story between a French African soldier and a German woman. And so it was also a place where I could channel a lot of the pain and sadness, and love that was still there, and so initially it was terrible. And then it ended up being really good for my writing because it's very raw. Yeah. And it was the same thing with the Wheatie. I was channeling everything from Trayvon Martin, Mike Brown, I had a place to put that hurt and suffering in a very raw and real way. And so people will say, oh my God, I was reading, I was crying while reading chapter whatever. And I'm like, I was crying when I wrote it. So I think that's sort of the same place that I am, with this book. So
what would you say to people experiencing such loss or tragedy or a shift when it comes to writing, I guess, writing through it?
Yeah, I would definitely recommend writing through it when you can. You can't force it, and that's what I had to learn. Right. I would sit there and I'd try and force it, and you only end up making yourself feel worse, right? You're like, I can't write any, I'm just a failure, I just was like, the end of the world. So, I got to this space where if I wanted to lay in the bed and I needed to lay in the bed and rest, I would rest, but if I had a feeling or emotion that I thought could really be channeled into one of these characters, I would do that, and I would be as painful and raw with it as I needed to be. Yeah. So I would definitely suggest, obviously, being true to yourself and your feelings where you are in the process. But if you have a way where you can channel that, especially where it can either help someone else, which is what I tried to do with the blog post.
We're going to talk about that.
Yeah, how can I help someone else with this? Or if you're writing fiction or something, how can I use this to make my character more real? Wow.
So what made you open up about such a sensitive topic?
Yes, it was tough, but I think I felt like a duty to do that. I feel like, people looked at our marriage and we just, the Instagram photos, right? You just look so beautiful and happy and, and there were beautiful moments and happy moments, But I think what I wanted to do was sort of help people who were, it starts like, if you're dating, do this, if you're this, and just some of the mistakes that we made along the way. Yeah. So that other people can sort of learn from that. Like, I don't think there's nothing to be had if I just, keep all of this inside. This is an opportunity for me to help other women. This is an opportunity for him to help other men, you know. And I never expected sort of the outpouring of what came from that. I mean, like the comments and the DMs and the, because so many people.
We don't talk about it.
We just don't talk about it, or, it's like, marriage is supposed to be tough, you're supposed to be unhappy. It just happens, and it's not supposed to be that way. It doesn't mean that you're not going to have tough times, right? But there are certain things. I think one of the things I mentioned was like, you can feel when that energy shifts in your relationship, just like we do with your friendships, right? You need to address it. And I think what happens is we get so caught up with work and our projects and our kids and this and that, and you look up and that gap has widened beyond repair. And so that's sort of what I wanted to, talk to people about. If you're dating, here are some things that you could be doing. Yeah. Getting married, here are some things that you could be doing.
It was a great blog post,
Are you having problems right now? Here's something. You know what I mean? And just sort of like wish everyone well in whatever path they choose in their process, because I want to be happy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I want to live a happy life.
Mm-hmm.
And, sometimes you have to take, some very drastic steps in order to make that happen.
Are you're happy now?
So happy. Yeah, so happy.
What does happiness look like for you?
Happiness looks like my little 635 square foot condo. Yeah, I think becoming a minimalist also helped shape my happiness. Not happy about getting a divorce. I think the end of any, relationship is, tragic in its own way.
Absolutely.
But happy that both of us were honest with our feelings. Happy that we had the courage and strength to not remain in something that was unfulfilling for us. 'Cause we could have stayed and we could have, looked good for the cameras, and
Right.
but we weren't being fulfilled. And I think it's grown people decisions that we that we had to make. So I'm happy about that. There was definitely a time in my life where I would have stayed because I cared what people thought, or
Wow.
I cared, what are people going to say, or So you see growth in all of these sort of painful struggles and transitions in your life. Yeah, and being able to write. I'm going on this writing residency to Tuscany.
I cannot wait to
just
see photos.
Yeah,
I'm so jealous.
I'll bring you back some chocolate and wine. Yeah, but just like owning who I am as a woman now and what I want to do and, the work that I want to produce and that sort of thing. Like, it just gives me a lot of joy.
That's
a
wonderful.
Lot of joy.
Oh,
yeah.
That's so wonderful. You mentioned minimalism.
Yes.
So how did that come about for you? Was it through the divorce?
No.
Or was it before?
This was probably one of the most challenging parts of the divorce.
Yeah.
Because, we have a house in PG County, and I'd always had a condo in D.C. that I had before we met. Renting it out. It's not hard to rent out a place in D.C., right? So it was this income property. And I read a book by the Minimalist a couple years ago. And I remember just like looking around our house, and it's just three of us, my husband, my daughter, and myself. And I was like, we have so much stuff.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of stuff because I was buying, trying to fill every void, or a bit of unhappiness in my life, right? So I just looked around like, we have so much stuff. And the stuff is stressful, right? Because when you have stuff, you have to clean stuff.
Yep.
So, and I just remember I would spend like an entire weekend just cleaning and dusting and mopping and, then being tired because I didn't get to spend my weekend the way I want. It's just like all this stuff.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, I'm going to try and adopt some of their principles. I knew I couldn't do let me put everything in a box and seal the box. And if I don't open the box in 6 months, I'll just donate it. I knew.
Wasn't happening.
That's not going to work for me. So I was like, I'm going to start with one thing. If I could just remove one thing, either a weekend or a day, I then took one picture down, took one vase away, started removing all the unlit candles, and you're like, and the house didn't feel empty, It actually started to feel very clean and very peaceful and very serene. And so my family, happy wife, happy life, right?
Right.
So they were like, I guess we're embarking on this journey
together.
And I think, my daughter, I guess she was probably like 10 or 11 at the time. And it's great for kids because, the less choices and stuff that they have to make, the better, right? Their lives are already so full. And I think, my husband was just happy that I was not complaining about all the work that I had to do and feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And so we had agreed that we were going to transition back into this condo space together. And then we decided on this divorce. I was like, so I'm going to be in the condo.
Yeah.
He's like, but I love the condo. You know, like we had envisioned what this was going to look like for us. And, I talked about starting the Afro Minimalist and like being able to help other people of color sort of embrace this lifestyle. And so that was probably the toughest part of the divorce. Yeah. Yeah. So he'll still like come over like, it looks really nice
in here.
Yeah. So yeah.
This has been such a great conversation.
I know.
I'm so happy to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here.
So as we wrap up,
yes,
5 self-care tips you would give to our listeners in regards, I'm going to make it kind of tricky for you.
Uh-oh.
In regards to writing.
All right. Tip number 1, do not force the process. Okay? Like thinking that you can make yourself sit down and write X number of words for X number of hours. It's a very unhealthy way to sort of approach the process. And I've done it before, and I'll probably do it again, when I have to.
Right.
But it sort of stifles your creativity. So my recommendation would be to choose something more healthy, which is I'm going to commit to write every day. Tip number 2, this is so funny. I talk about this all the time. Don't be afraid to use the good journals. So I have this thing, right? You buy these pretty journals.
And you don't use them.
And you don't use them because your hand is raised. Yeah. And that's something that I've embraced along with minimalism is like, don't be afraid to use the pretty things and enjoy the pretty things, and it is, I love writing in my beautiful rifle paper journals, you know what I mean? That used to just like collect dust because I would just look at the covers like, they're so pretty. I don't want to write in it, Allow yourself the joy and pleasure of enjoying the pretty things as part of the writing process. Number 3, be good to yourself. I suffered writing a wee tea. Ended up being a great book, I think, but I put up like maybe 25 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I was just eating crap, treating myself like crap, and, it's so important to eat well and get adequate rest and move. I remember I got a Fitbit because I knew that I wasn't moving, but I just wondered like how much I was not moving.
Yeah.
And there was one time during the revision process, like I literally took 980 steps, which is literally like I went to the kitchen and I went to the bathroom. You know what I mean? And like, that's not healthy.
Yeah.
All right, let me wrap this up. Number 4, indulge in some self-care. I remember when you and I first met and I was like, I'm embarking on this creative journey. And, you're like, I don't do such and such after such and such time. And such is my day off. And I was just like, wow. And like in my mind, I was still going to approach it like it was a 9-to-5 full-time job. And the creative mind just doesn't work that way.
Right.
You literally have to give yourself a break and rest and be good to yourself. Lush. Alex and I are lushies.
Yeah, we are.
And number 5, trust yourself, trust your writing, believe in your work, believe in your voice, know that your voice needs to be heard. Everybody has a unique individual story to tell, but you have to go for it, right?
Yeah.
You have to go for it. So trust yourself. Those are my 5.
Awesome.
On the spot.
Awesome.
How you can put me on the spot like that?
I put some people on the spot sometimes. So we are going to wrap this show up. Thank you so much for being here yet again. And please let people know where they can find you and where they can find your work.
Yes, you can find me at cppatrick.com. You can find my work on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, independent booksellers worldwide, and on Instagram. So I tried to, all my social media handles should be author CP Patrick. So you should be able to find me on Instagram and Twitter, and then the Afro Minimalist on Instagram.
Wonderful.
So, yes.
All right, girl.
All right. Bye.
Hey Girl is a member of the District Productive Network. Produced by Jamie Benson and me, Alex Elle. Music provided by DC's own Kokai.